The morning sun was rising over the quiet lands of Terra West, a wide planet that looked almost like the old Earth deserts. Golden sand stretched for miles, broken only by small green patches where people had built their homes. Here life moved slow and peaceful. Men and women worked their farms, raised flying animals, and lived in wooden houses mixed with metal machines from old times. Tom, a tall rancher with a wide hat and calm eyes, stood at the edge of his land. His ranch was huge, stretching across the valley. Dozens of sky bison, gentle flying beasts with soft blue fur, rested near the water tanks. Their wings shimmered when sunlight touched them. Tom loved them like family. They helped him carry crops and supplies to the nearby towns. It was an ordinary morning. Tom walked with his mechanical horse, a metal creature he called Rusty. The horse made soft clanking sounds as it moved. Tom liked the sound. It was the sound of old Earth engineering, strong, steady, and built to last. He checked the fences as he did every day. Everything seemed calm. The wind was warm and the air smelled of dust and life. But then, something changed. From the far western edge of his land, near the old crater that locals often whispered about, a line of dark smoke began to rise into the sky. Tom stopped walking. His boots froze in the sand. For a moment he thought his eyes were lying, but the smoke kept climbing, thick and black, curling into the morning light. His heart jumped. That area had nothing that could burn. There were no machines, no fuel, no houses, just empty land and strange old rocks. He whispered softly, "What in the world?" Rusty made a low metallic sound as if sensing danger. Tom tightened his grip on the reins and climbed onto the saddle. "Let's go, partner," he said. The horse's engines hummed and it began to run toward the smoke. Sand flew behind its metal hooves. The ranch stretched endlessly, and as they rode, Tom's mind raced. The old crater had always felt strange. It was a wide circle of gray dirt surrounded by rocks with odd lines, almost like writing. Some said it was just a meteor crash site. Others believed it was from the first Earthships that landed long ago. Tom never cared much for stories. He cared about his land, his animals, and the work of each day. But as the smoke grew darker, he felt something different, a deep unease, like the ground itself was trying to warn him. When he reached the hill near the crater, he saw something that made his chest tighten. The smoke wasn't from a grass fire. It was coming from inside the ground. The crater glowed faintly and the soil around it was shaking. The air shimmered with heat even though there was no flame. Tom slowed Rusty down and climbed off carefully. The earth under his boots was warm, too warm for morning time. He crouched near the edge and saw it clearly now, a round piece of metal half buried in the dirt. It was large, maybe 5 meters wide, with strange marks burned into its surface. Around it, steam hissed out from small cracks like the land was breathing. Tom touched his hat and whispered, That wasn't here yesterday." Rusty's sensors beeped softly, showing a faint blue light spreading under the soil. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Tom reached out slowly and brushed some of the dirt away with his hand. The metal underneath was smooth, cold, and silver gray. Then, to his shock, it hummed, a low, deep sound that vibrated through his fingers. He pulled back quickly. His heart was beating hard now. "That's no rock," he said softly. "That's something else." He stepped back and looked around. The wind had stopped completely. The ranch felt silent, too silent, as if even the insects were holding their breath. The only sound was the faint hum of the buried object and the soft click of Rusty's gears. Tom looked up at the smoke again. It was fading now, replaced by thin streams of blue mist that drifted across the crater. The air smelled strange, sharp, like burnt metal mixed with rain. He could feel tiny electric sparks on his skin, dancing like static. He thought for a moment about going back to the house and calling for help, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He wanted to know what this thing was and why it was under his land. He grabbed his scanner tool, a small handheld device that Mira, his friend from the nearby town, had given him. She was good with machines, and she had once told him, "If you ever find old tech, scan it first before touching anything." Tom turned the scanner on. The screen flickered and then showed lines of strange symbols. The device began to beep wildly. "What in the stars?" Tom whispered. The scanner was reading energy signatures, strong ones, deeper under the ground. It was something alive. Not in a living sense, but in a power sense. Then the ground beneath his boots shivered again. Dust lifted. A deep sound came from below, like a distant engine waking up after a long sleep. Rusty stepped back, and the sky bison near the fields began to cry out in fear, their wings fluttering. Tom shouted, "Easy there," but his voice was lost in the growing hum. The light under the crater grew brighter, blue, then white, then golden. The soil cracked open along a thin line, forming a circle. Tom stumbled back as a wave of warm air rose around him, and then for a brief second everything went silent. No hum, no wind, no sound at all. Tom stood frozen, staring at the glowing metal surface that had now fully revealed itself. It wasn't just a random piece of machinery, and it was a hatch. A perfect, smooth circle with a tiny opening in the center, like an eye looking back at him. A faint whisper came from inside. Not a voice, but something like air moving through a tunnel. The blue light shimmered again, and he saw shapes carved into the metal. They looked like a mix of human letters and alien signs. One of them glowed brighter, pulsing every few seconds. Tom felt a strange pull inside his chest and urged to reach out again. He hesitated, then slowly extended his hand. His fingers touched the glowing mark, and in that instant the hatch responded. It hummed louder and then stopped. A deep vibration spread through the ground. Small pebbles rolled down the crater walls. Rusty made a warning beep. Tom stepped back quickly. "All right, that's enough," he said nervously. But the hatch didn't stop. Lines of light spread outward from the center, forming patterns across the surface. The dirt shook harder, and somewhere below, gears started turning. He could feel it. Something under the ranch was waking up. Then the center of the hatch opened slightly, releasing a thin stream of blue mist that rose into the air. The mist twisted into small glowing threads that floated upward, then disappeared into the sky. Tom stood there breathless, watching it. The light faded slowly, leaving the hatch silent once more. The ground cooled down and the air became calm again. Only a faint hum remained, very soft, almost peaceful. He didn't know what to think. He looked around the quiet ranch, then back at the strange metal door. Whatever it was, it had been buried here for who knew how long. Maybe centuries. Maybe since the first people came from Earth. And now, it had awakened because of him. He took a long breath and whispered, "Mira's gonna want to see this." The wind began to move again, carrying away the last bit of smoke. The suns of Terra West were rising higher now, lighting up the land in gold and silver. But the crater remained dim, glowing faintly like an eye that refused to close. Tom climbed onto Rusty's back and turned toward home. As he rode across the quiet fields, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed. Something deep under his ranch had stirred, and it was only the beginning. When the suns rose again over Terra West, the soft golden light covered the ranch like a blanket. The smoke from the day before was gone, but the strange hatch in the crater still glowed faintly under the soil. Tom had barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that low hum from the ground and saw the blue mist rising into the air. At sunrise, he finally decided he couldn't face it alone. He sent a message through his old communicator to Mira, a smart and brave engineer who lived in the nearby town of Redfield. She was known for fixing machines that others couldn't even understand. She had helped Tom many times before, repairing his tools and even teaching him a little about scanners and ancient tech. When she arrived a few hours later, she stepped down from her small hover bike and looked around. Her brown coat was covered in red dust and her hands carried a heavy tool bag. She smiled when she saw Tom, but her face turned serious when she noticed the crater. "What happened here?" she asked. Tom pointed toward the glowing metal under the soil. "That's what I was hoping you could tell me. It came out of nowhere. Yesterday there was smoke, and then this thing opened itself." Mira walked closer and knelt beside the hatch. Her eyes widened. "This isn't natural," she said softly. "It's man-made, but old, very old." Tom nodded. "That's what I thought. The marks on it, they look like a mix of human letters and something else." She took out a small analyzer and ran it across the surface. The screen flickered and filled with lines of text. Her eyebrows rose. "It's using energy I've never seen before," she said. "This metal is stronger than steel, but it's not hot, not cold. Just alive somehow." "Alive?" Tom asked, looking confused. "Not like a living thing," she explained. "But it's reacting to us. Look, the light grows brighter when I scan it." Tom noticed she was right. The blue glow pulsed softly, almost like the hatch was breathing. Mira stood and looked around the crater. "Did you touch it?" she asked. Tom hesitated. Yeah, he said slowly. It reacted when I did. It opened a little, like it was listening. Mira frowned. Then it's waiting for a signal. Maybe your touch woke it up. Before Tom could answer, the ground under them made a faint sound. A slow click followed by a deeper hum. Both of them stepped back quickly. The hatch began to move again. Dust rolled down the crater's edge as the circular door turned slightly, revealing a dark hole beneath it. A cold mist rose from inside. The air around them cooled and the smell of metal filled their noses. Mira looked at Tom. We should check it, she said firmly. If this thing woke up on your land, you need to know what's below. Tom didn't argue. He took a lantern from Rusty's saddle, while Mira prepared a rope and fastened it to a large rock. Together they climbed down carefully into the dark opening. The inside was quiet and cold. The walls were smooth metal, shining faintly under the lantern light. Steps led deeper into the earth. As they went down, Tom could hear the soft hum echoing like a faraway heartbeat. This is no small place, Mira whispered. It's a structure, a whole station underground. Tom looked around in awe. How far down do you think it goes? Hard to say, she replied. But this feels like something built by humans long ago. Maybe by the first settlers before the modern colonies. They reached the bottom and stepped into a large chamber that took Tom's breath away. It was huge, maybe 100 feet wide, with high ceilings made of shining silver panels. Lines of blue light ran through the walls like veins. Floating machines, small silent drones, hung in the air, unmoving as if frozen in time. The floor was covered in dust, untouched for centuries. At the center of the room stood a massive metal orb, half broken but still glowing faintly. Wires stretched out from it like roots of a tree, connecting it to the walls. Mira walked slowly toward it, her eyes full of wonder. Tom, this is ancient human tech. Maybe from the first generation who came from Earth. It's incredible. Tom stayed close, his boots echoing on the metal floor. What do you think it does? Before she could answer, a soft voice filled the air. It was mechanical, calm, and echoing from every wall. Human presence confirmed. Awakening protocol initiated. Tom froze. Mira looked around in shock. It's still working, she whispered. The orb began to vibrate softly. Dust fell from the ceiling as lights across the walls turned on one by one, filling the chamber with bright blue light. The floating drones came to life, blinking and moving slowly around the room. Tom stepped back, holding his lantern tightly. What's happening? Mira held up her device. It's scanning us. It recognizes human life signs. Then the voice spoke again. System memory damaged. Restoring visual archive. The walls shifted and suddenly a holographic map appeared in midair. It showed the shape of Terra West glowing in blue lines. Across the map were dozens of red dots spread across the continents. What are those? Tom asked quietly. Mira's eyes stayed fixed on the map. I think they're stations like this one. Maybe all over the planet. Stations. For what? Before she could explain, the voice continued. Warning. Planetary defense grid inactive. Reconnection sequence pending. Tom and Mira exchanged worried looks. Defense grid? Tom repeated. You mean weapons? Not just weapons, Mira said slowly. A whole network built to protect the planet. The early settlers must have made this system to keep the colony safe. But it's been asleep for hundreds of years. The orb made a louder sound now. A sharp crack as part of its surface split open. Inside, a bright core of golden light glowed like fire. Energy rising, Mira said quickly. Tom, something's recharging. The entire room began to shake. The blue lines on the walls turned brighter and brighter until they hurt to look at. The drones flew in circles, scanning everything. The map flickered, and the red dots began to change color, one by one turning from red to blue. Tom shouted over the noise, What's it doing? Mira's voice was full of awe and fear. It's waking the others! A deep vibration traveled through the ground. Tom could feel it under his boots, spreading far beyond the chamber, across the ranch, maybe across the entire planet. The orb pulsed with light, and then a narrow beam shot upward, piercing through the ceiling and out into the open sky. The beam was bright enough to be seen for miles. Rusty, waiting near the crater above, raised its head and scanned the light. The sky bison across the ranch grew restless, flapping their wings and making frightened sounds. Tom and Mira shielded their eyes. We have to go, Mira shouted. They ran back toward the stairs as dust and steam filled the chamber. The hum grew louder, echoing through their bones. When they finally reached the surface, the beam was still shining, a perfect column of golden light rising into the blue sky. Tom stared in disbelief. That light, it's going all the way up. Mira nodded, breathing hard. It's signaling something. Maybe to space. Tom turned to her. You mean it's calling something? Or warning something, she said, her eyes wide. Either way, it means the old world isn't as lost as we thought. They stood there silently, the warm wind brushing against their faces. The light slowly faded until only a faint shimmer remained above the crater. The hum from below continued, steady and alive. Tom looked at the hatch again. The blue glow was stronger now, as if the machine below had taken a deep breath after a long sleep. He whispered, "Whatever's under this ranch, it remembers us." Mira nodded slowly. "And now, Tom, it's awake." The two friends stood at the edge of the crater, watching the last of the light fade into the morning sky. Neither of them spoke again. Deep down, they both felt it. The world had changed. The silence of centuries had ended, and something powerful was rising from the forgotten depths of Terra West. The suns had set behind the distant hills of Terra West, but the land around Tom's ranch still glowed faintly from the light that had shot out of the crater. The night air was cool, and the ground seemed to hum with soft energy, like the planet itself was breathing after a long sleep. Tom sat on the porch of his small wooden house, staring at the crater in the distance. His cup of hot tea rested untouched beside him. Rusty, his loyal metal horse, stood nearby, its red eyes watching quietly. The sky bison were restless in their pens, shifting and murmuring as if they sensed something big had changed. Mira was inside the house, checking her analyzer again and again. Her face was serious. She had been studying the readings ever since they came back from the underground chamber. Every result made her frown deeper. Finally, she stepped out and said, "Tom, I think we've started something huge." Tom looked up at her calmly. "I figured as much." The light was seen all the way to the next town. "Folks are going to start asking questions soon." Mira sat beside him and showed her screen. This signal that went up, it wasn't just light. It was a communication pulse. It went straight into space. Tom frowned. "So it sent a message?" "Yes," she said. "And I think something answered." He turned sharply toward her. "What do you mean?" She pointed to the screen again. "Just after the beam faded, my scanner picked up a wave of energy coming from orbit. It's faint, but it's there. Something up there woke up too." Tom rubbed his chin. "You think it's human?" "I don't know," Mira admitted. "But whatever is out there, it heard the signal." The ranch fell silent. The only sound was the soft wind moving through the dry grass. Tom stared toward the crater again, and the faint blue light below the soil seemed to pulse, as if listening to them. By morning, strange things began happening all across Terra West. In the town of Redfield, people saw their machines flicker and their lights blink in rhythm. Farther away, near the Sand Valley mines, workers reported hearing deep metallic sounds coming from underground. The hums matched the same frequency as the one Tom had felt beneath his ranch. News spread fast through radio channels and local messengers. People were frightened but curious. Some said it was a natural quake. Others whispered that the old settlers had left behind something sacred. Tom and Mira, however, already knew the truth. The ancient human defense network was waking. They returned to the crater that morning. The hatch still glowed, but now it vibrated softly as if waiting for them. When they arrived, a small drone floated up from inside the crater, one of the same metal spheres they had seen in the underground chamber. It hovered before Tom, scanning his face with a thin blue beam. "Human presence detected," the drone said in a gentle, robotic tone. "Primary command authentication pending." Tom stepped back slightly. What does that mean?" Mira's voice was calm but full of wonder. "It means it's waiting for someone to give it orders. It still recognizes humans as the controlling race." The drone moved closer. "Command link not found." "Searching. It paused. "Root access located beneath this location. Activation required." Tom looked at Mira. "Beneath the ranch again?" She nodded slowly. "That means there's something even deeper down. The first chamber we found was just part of the system." Tom sighed softly. "Guess we're not done digging." They returned inside the hatch, this time better prepared. Mira carried a strong light, extra scanners, and oxygen filters. Tom brought simple tools, ropes, and Rusty followed them down part of the way before waiting near the entrance. The chamber looked different now. The blue veins of light in the walls were brighter, and the drones moved smoothly around the room, fixing damaged parts and clearing dust. The big orb at the center was silent again, but shining gently like a calm heart. Mira approached it and placed her hand on the smooth surface. "We're here," she said softly. "Show us what's next." The orb answered with a low hum. Then part of the floor behind it opened, revealing a narrow staircase made of light. The air that came out was colder, with a hint of electricity. Tom whistled quietly. They really wanted to hide this place. They went down together, their lanterns reflecting off metal walls that curved like the inside of a great machine. After a long walk, they reached another room, smaller but filled with screens and strange panels. At the center stood a tall crystal pillar glowing gold. The moment they entered, a voice echoed through the room, deeper and stronger than before. "Command Core reactivation in progress. Identifying human commander." The pillar shone brighter. Lines of light spread across the floor toward where Tom stood. He froze. "Mira, what's it doing?" She looked at him with wide eyes. "It's scanning you." The voice spoke again. "Genetic match detected. Lineage confirmed. Descendant of primary founders. Authorization granted." Tom took a step back. "Descendant of who?" Mira smiled slowly. "Tom, you're related to the first settlers. Your family must have come from the same crew who built this planet's defense system. That's why it responded to your touch." The light grew warmer around him, and the voice continued. "Human command restored. Planetary defense awakening protocol initiated." Suddenly, the walls lit up with thousands of moving symbols. The entire room trembled, and a deep vibration ran through the earth. At the same time, in orbit above Terra West, several old satellites that had floated dead for centuries came alive. Their lights blinked red to blue, sending signals back to the surface. Across the world, hidden doors in mountains and deserts began to open, revealing massive shapes buried beneath the ground. They were guardians, giant machines made of steel and light, each one the size of a small building. Some stood on 4 legs, others floated using blue energy rings. Their eyes glowed as they powered up, looking toward the sky as if waiting for an enemy. On the surface near Tom's ranch, the ground started to crack again. Tom and Mira hurried back up the stairs and out through the main chamber, which now buzzed with energy. As they reached the surface, a shadow covered the land. Tom looked up and gasped. A colossal machine was rising from the earth behind the crater. It was shaped like a humanoid, with armor made of silver plates and glowing lines of blue light. Its head turned slowly, and 2 bright eyes looked down at Tom. The Guardian's voice was deep and thunderous. "Identify human command," Mira shouted. "Tom, it's talking to you." Tom felt both fear and awe. He stepped forward carefully. "I'm here," he said. "Tom, of Terra West." The Guardian's eyes flashed once, scanning him from head to toe. Then it spoke again. "Human detected. Awaiting command authentication." Before Tom could reply, Mira's scanner beeped loudly. She looked at the screen, her face turning pale. "Tom, look at this. Something's coming from space." Above them, the sky shimmered. Small lights appeared far beyond the atmosphere, moving fast. They weren't stars, and they were ships, dark and sharp, heading toward the planet. The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter. "External threat detected. Defense protocol activation imminent." Tom felt his heart pound. "Mira, those ships. They're not human, are they?" She shook her head slowly. "No, they're not." The Guardian raised one of its giant arms, and the blue lines across its body blazed like fire. The air vibrated with energy. Command unit required for engagement. Awaiting human authorization. Tom realized it was waiting for him. He swallowed hard, then spoke clearly. "Protect the people of Terra West. Do not harm them. Only defend." The Guardian paused for a moment, as if listening deeply. Then it bowed its head. "Command accepted. Defense systems online." All across the planet, the other Guardians responded with a loud, unified hum that echoed through mountains and valleys. Shields of light began forming above towns, glowing like domes in the sky. Mira stood beside Tom, watching in awe. "Tom," she whispered, "you just reawakened the oldest defense army humanity ever built." He stared up at the giant figure that now stood over his ranch, its eyes burning like suns. The night wind blew softly through the grass. Somewhere far above, alien ships kept moving closer, unaware that the sleeping world below had awakened its protectors. Tom took a deep breath. "Then let them come," he said quietly. "We're ready." The next morning came heavy with clouds. The air was cold and the ground around the ranch still smelled like burned metal. Tom stood near the barn, looking at the large hole they had dug last night. Under the thin layer of dust, the strange silver shell glowed faintly like moonlight. He had not slept. His eyes were tired, but his mind was awake. Mira and Dan came out carrying breakfast, though no one felt hungry. Mira whispered, "Tom, we should call someone. Maybe scientists or the city guards?" Tom shook his head. "Not yet. Once they come, this place won't belong to us anymore. They'll take it away and we'll never know what it truly is." He looked down at the shell again. It was bigger than their tractor, smooth and cold with lines that pulsed like slow heartbeats. When he touched it, he could feel a hum deep inside it, like something alive but quiet. Dan crouched near it, pushing a small metal rod into the surface. "It's changing again. These lines weren't here before, and he was right. The shell was forming patterns, symbols no one could understand. It looked like writing, but not any language they knew." The wind began to pick up, carrying dust across the ranch. The horses in the stable were restless, stamping and snorting. Birds flew away from the trees nearby, and a deep rumble came from below. Tom turned sharply. "Did you hear that?" The ground shook slightly. Mira grabbed the fence post for balance. Then the hum grew louder, no longer gentle, but a strong vibration that made the tools in the barn fall from the shelves. The silver shell cracked open. A long hiss of air escaped as the top part slowly lifted. Inside was darkness, thick moving darkness. And then light, soft blue light, shone out. Mira gasped. "Tom, something's inside." A shape began to rise from within the shell. It wasn't human, but it wasn't frightening either. It was tall and slim, made of glowing light and silver skin. Its eyes were deep and calm like water. When it looked at Tom, everything went quiet. The wind, the horses, even the machines. Then a voice spoke, not from its mouth, but inside their heads. "Do not be afraid. We come from beneath, not beyond." Tom took a slow step forward. His hat almost fell off as he stared at the glowing figure. "Who are you?" he asked softly. "We are the ones who slept," the being said. "Before your kind walked these plains, we guarded what lies below." Dan's mouth fell open. "Below? You mean under the ranch?" The being turned its head slightly, almost like a nod. "Your world grows over our ruins. We hid from the skies long ago, waiting for the right hands to wake us." Tom's voice shook slightly. "We didn't mean to wake you. We were just trying to save our ranch." "You did not wake us by mistake, human," the being said. "The fire above, the hunger of your machines, it all reached us." The ground spoke of pain. "We woke to help." Mira looked confused. "Help? Help with what?" The being stretched out its arm and a thin beam of light touched the burned soil. Instantly, the ground healed, green returning where black ash had been. Grass grew back within seconds, and the smell of life filled the air. Tom couldn't believe it. He looked around at his land coming back to life. "You fixed it." "The earth remembers," said the being gently. "We only remind it." But before they could ask more, the sky flashed. A sound like thunder roared across the hills. From far away, dark ships appeared, black triangles flying low and fast. They weren't human aircraft. The silver being turned its head toward them, eyes glowing brighter. Dan shouted, "Are those your people?" The being shook its head. "No, they are hunters. They follow the old signal. They think this place still hides the power we once used." Tom clenched his fists. "What kind of power?" "The heart of the world," said the being. "Energy that can feed or destroy." The ships grew closer. The ground shook as they passed overhead, leaving waves of heat in the air. The being raised both hands, and a shield of blue light spread around the ranch like a bubble. Mira stepped closer to Tom, fear on her face. "What do we do?" Tom stared at the glowing figure beside them. "We protect our home," he said firmly. "Same as always." The being turned toward him. "Your courage honors your kind. Few would stand when the sky burns." Tom didn't understand the full meaning, but he nodded. "If this is my land, then I'll fight for it." The first ship fired a beam toward them. The blue shield rippled like water, holding strong. The beam hit the field and melted the dirt into glass. The sound was deafening. Dan ran into the barn and started the tractor. He had no weapon, but he wanted to help somehow. Mira grabbed the radio, trying to send a message, but all she heard was static. The being lifted its arms again. From the ground, Tall metal roots rose, forming a circle of protection. They looked like part of the ship's body that had grown into the soil over centuries. "Your planet remembers us," the being said again. "We are not gone." Tom stood beside it, holding nothing but an old metal rod, feeling useless and yet brave. "Then let's show them," he said. The being smiled slightly, if it could be called a smile, and turned its glowing eyes to the sky. The next beam from the enemy ship struck, and this time the shield exploded outward, sending a wave of light that hit the flying machines. One after another they fell, not burning but silently shutting down, their power gone. Dan cheered from the barn. "It worked. You stopped them." But the being didn't celebrate. It lowered its head, glowing dimmer now. "Not for long. The hunters never stop. They will send more. They smell the energy like wolves smell blood." Tom took a deep breath. "Then we'll stop them again." The being looked at him for a long moment. "You have a choice, human. You can bury us again and live in peace, or you can help us end this forever." Mira spoke softly. "What happens if we help? Then your kind will no longer be hidden from the stars." The wind calmed. The blue light faded. The silver shell pulsed slowly like a living heart. The ranch was quiet again, except for the soft hum under the soil. Tom looked around at his family, his land, and the glowing being who stood waiting. Something inside him knew this was not just about the ranch anymore. It was about Earth itself, about humans standing beside something ancient and powerful. He took off his hat, wiped the dust from his face, and looked at the being. "All right," he said. "If there's a fight coming, we'll stand with you." The being's eyes brightened once more. "Then the stars will remember the humans of the plains." That night the ranch glowed faintly under the clouds. Deep underground, something old began to awaken. Machines that had slept for thousands of years. And Tom, the giant cowboy who once froze at the sight of smoke, now stood at the edge of a war he never asked for, but one that only humans could finish. The suns were rising over Terra West, painting the horizon gold and orange. The ranch was quiet but not peaceful. Deep beneath the soil, hidden for centuries, the ancient guardians stirred. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, and long metal limbs adjusted silently, waiting for orders. Tom stood near the crater, his hat pulled low, holding the old metal rod he had used the day the hatch first appeared. Mira and Dan were beside him, but they didn't speak. Even Rusty, his mechanical horse, was still, as if sensing the tension. Above them, the sky was clear, but distant flashes of light showed the enemy ships approaching from beyond the planet. They came slowly, carefully, as if they knew something powerful had awakened. The silver being from the hatch floated beside Tom. Its glow was soft but steady. "They are close," it said. "If the humans are to survive, you must lead." Tom swallowed hard. He had never been a leader of armies. He had raised sky bison, repaired fences, and kept his ranch running. But now, the responsibility of the planetary defense grid rested on his shoulders. He looked at the glowing figure, then at the crater that hid the command core. "All right," he said firmly. "We protect the people. Nothing else matters. Not the land, not the machines, just life." "Your heart is true," the being said. "Then humanity will not fall today." The enemy ships, dark and sharp, broke through the atmosphere. Their beams of energy cut across the sky. Villages in the distance trembled under the force, but no one knew why the attacks didn't destroy them. Tom's hands tightened around the rod. "They won't hurt anyone. Not if we can stop them." The being raised its hands, and a giant wave of blue energy rose from the ground, forming a dome over the ranch. The earth trembled as roots of metal and light shot up from beneath the soil, creating walls of protection around the ranch and the nearby town. Mira gasped. "It's incredible. It's like the whole planet is fighting with us." Dan nodded, his eyes wide. "We're standing on living machines." "Guardians." "Everywhere." The first wave of enemy fire hit the dome. A sharp crack rang through the air as energy struck metal roots, but the shield held firm. Sparks flew and the air smelled of ozone, but nothing inside the dome was harmed. From the shadows of the crater, more guardians emerged. Tall humanoid machines with glowing eyes stepped onto the surface. Some floated, some walked, but all moved with precision. Each one aligned itself as if receiving commands. Tom took a deep breath. He didn't feel fear. He felt responsibility. "Command the guardians," he said softly. "Protect the land. Only defend. Don't destroy unnecessarily." The silver being nodded. "They listen to you." "The command is yours, Keeper of Terra West." The enemy ships fired again, but this time their beams were blocked before reaching the ground. Guardians stepped forward, their arms glowing with energy. They didn't strike immediately. Instead, they formed a line, moving in perfect coordination. Each movement was calculated, precise. Tom watched as one of the closest ships fired a powerful laser. The Guardian nearest it raised a shield of energy, reflecting the attack back into the sky. The ship shivered and faltered, then retreated slightly. "Keep going," Tom whispered to himself. "Don't let them see fear." Mira adjusted her scanner. "Tom, these ships, they aren't expecting resistance like this. Every time a Guardian reacts, they hesitate." Tom nodded. "Good. Let's make sure they think twice about Terra West." The battle continued across the skies and the land. The Guardians moved in unison, responding instantly to every threat. They used light shields, metallic limbs, and beams of energy, but never destroyed unnecessarily. Villages and towns remained untouched, even as the enemy tried to force them down. Tom guided the Guardians like he guided his sky bison. He raised his hand, pointed, and shifted his weight, and the machines responded instantly. Every move was precise, protecting life and land simultaneously. Dan, who had never held a command before, shouted in excitement. "Tom, they're listening to you. You're really controlling them." "I'm not controlling," Tom said calmly. "I'm leading. That's all." The silver being hovered near him. "True leadership is not force. It is understanding. You have it." The enemy ships began to retreat, recognizing that Terra West was defended beyond their calculations. One by one, they shot back but found the Guardians' shields stronger, faster, and smarter. Energy beams fizzled, engines sputtered, and the ships faltered. Finally, a large black ship tried to fire directly into the crater. Tom raised his hand. The earth beneath it rose like a wave of metal and light. Roots wrapped around the ship, lifting it gently from the sky and sending it spinning away harmlessly into the distance. Mira clapped her hands. "It's over! They're leaving!" The silver being looked at Tom, its glow softening. "The threat has retreated. Your world is safe for now." The battle was over, but the ranch and the land had changed forever. The Guardians remained, quietly watching the horizon. The hatch closed, sealing the core once more, but a soft hum continued, reminding everyone that the machines were alive and waiting. Tom stepped forward, looking at the rising suns. "We did it," he said softly. "We really did it," Mira smiled. "You did it, Tom. You didn't just protect your ranch. You protected the entire planet." Dan shook his head in disbelief. "I still can't believe it. Machines, Guardians, fighting like that. And they listened to you." Tom laughed quietly. "It wasn't me. It was all of us. The land, the Guardians, the people, all of us together." The silver being hovered beside him. "Your courage and wisdom have awakened the strength of Terra West. You are the keeper. Remember, the planet will always follow your heart." Tom looked down at the soft earth beneath his boots. He could feel the hum of the Guardians even under the soil. Life had returned. The sky bison landed softly nearby, curious but calm. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the smell of morning and promise. He knew that the Guardians would stay hidden unless needed. The land would heal itself. The machines would protect the people quietly, waiting for the next threat. But more importantly, humans had shown themselves worthy of the trust passed down by the first settlers. Weeks passed. Life on the ranch returned to normal, but nothing was exactly the same. The locals noticed small changes. Green grass grew where there was none before, rivers flowed stronger, and animals behaved calmer. Tom and Mira did not explain the Guardians. People were happy to see the land thriving, and that was enough. At night, Tom would ride Rusty along the hills, looking at the stars. He could feel the presence of the Guardians beneath the soil, and he smiled quietly. The humans had survived because they cared, because they had heart. That was something no machine, no alien could ever understand. Mira often joined him, scanning the land but smiling at the simple beauty of the ranch. "You know," she said one evening, "we might be the first humans to see the Guardians fully awake." Tom looked at her, then at the glowing horizon. "Maybe, but we're not the last. Others will come to understand, and they'll know the truth. Humans protect what matters. That's why we survive." The silver being appeared beside him briefly, glowing softly under the moonlight. "The humans of Terra West have proven their spirit. Guardians will remain, but you are the keeper. Always remember your heart guides them." Tom nodded. I will. I promise. The being faded, leaving only the hum beneath the soil. The ranch was quiet again. The sky bison grazed. Rusty stood patiently, and the twin suns of Terra West rose slowly, bathing the land in golden light. For Tom, Mira, Dan, and all of Terra West, it was a new beginning. Humans had survived, defended, and awakened the strength that lay beneath the ground. Their courage had proven that no matter the threat, life, heart, and wisdom would always protect them. And the ranch, once ordinary, would forever remain a place where humans had stood tall, facing the unknown, and had won.